Jim Jordan eyes the Speaker's gavel. Welcome to Columbus on the Record, saying he is the man who can unite Republicans to keep their promises to the American people. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan told his fellow lawmakers he wants to be the next Speaker of the U.S. House. Jordan represents Ohio's 4th congressional district. He's from Urbana, but his district includes suburbs and rural areas north of Columbus. He's the founder of the House Freedom Caucus. His main competitor seems to be Congressman Steve Scalise of Louisiana. Bob Clegg, you have observed Jim Jordan for a long time.
He is actually my congressman.
Yes, I was going to say that. He is your congressman. He's selling himself as the unifier. Is that going to work?
Well, unifier in regards to the
party.
Republican Party, yeah. I think he could because, I mean, he was one of the original founders of that Freedom Caucus. But he was a staunch Kevin McCarthy supporter. So, those 8 Republicans that broke away to join with the Democrats to oust Kevin McCarthy, there's nobody in that 8-person group that could win it. So whoever they pick is going to be a McCarthy supporter. So that's it.
But do you find it ironic that Jim Jordan, who has been a thorn in the side of the establishment, of Republican leaders, John Boehner, down the line, is now the guy who says, I can bring everyone together, and I'm going to be the leader?
Mike, we talked about this earlier. We talked about it early this year when we were going through the original speaker battle. Yeah. And you saw then that, and I said it at the time, you were seeing a transformation on Jim Jordan. He was no longer the outsider trying to fight his way in. He was an insider. And that's how he became, chairman of Judiciary and why he was a staunch supporter of Kevin McCarthy.
Julie, does this matter for Ohio? John Boehner was the Speaker of the House from Ohio. He's from the Cincinnati area. But
I don't think it matters all that much, honestly, because, Jim Jordan has been pursuing a very national agenda for a very long time. And that's the one thing that surprises me is that he would want to give up that, watchdog role that he's been given to sort of conduct these investigations and lead the charge kind of in the world of in the Trump world of against the Democrats. He would be doing that as Speaker, but I think the job would be much bigger than that.
Joe, he's in this position. There is a Speaker vacancy because every Democrat in Congress voted against Kevin McCarthy.
I thought it was a huge mistake, quite frankly. I thought that the Democrats in Congress had the opportunity to define what the issue really was. The issue I'm talking about, national leadership. I think that they had an opportunity to help out and say our real concern here, the real danger with America is not our friends, the Republicans, with whom we may disagree all the time, but it's the MAGA folks. It's those 8 bomb throwers that did this. And by uniting with them, they did absolutely nothing to define that.
Democrats complained they couldn't trust Kevin McCarthy, even after they sided.
And they can trust Jim Jordan more.
And the Republicans said the same thing. I mean, that they can't trust him either. So I'm saying it's not even an issue of trust.
Can Jim Jordan, Bob, can he raise the money a House Speaker needs to raise? Steve Scalise has reportedly raised $170 million for Republicans over the last 10 years.
Well, he's been chairman of Judiciary, but he really hasn't been in leadership. And once you're in leadership, that money comes your way. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. And just briefly talk about what Joe just was saying, Democrats better be careful what they wish for, because I don't see a Speaker Jim Jordan being any more accommodating than Speaker Kevin McCarthy was. And, in the end, a lot of these Republicans that supported McCarthy, like Jordan, want retribution, not only in the 8 Republicans that broke away, but all of the Democrats.
But Julie, just like Republicans ran against Nancy Pelosi, still do, if Jordan were to be the Speaker, the 2024 ads would be running against Jim Jordan.
Right, and I mean, I think that that's the strategy there. I have to agree with both of these guys that the the idea that, politics does make odd bedfellows, but for them to advance the agenda of a small group of, sort of very far-right Republicans just seems a little bit off, not off message, but off of just the goals that they have.
But the party in the minority never votes for the majority speaker, though, right? Or occasionally does that happen? It happened in Ohio with Larry Householder.
And also, and you saw it here in Ohio just earlier this year. When you're in the minority like that, like the Democrats are here in Ohio and in D.C. in the House, you try to be relevant. And that's one way you can be super relevant when you vote to kick out the speaker.
There was one incident about 15 years ago in California where, in fact, minority Democrats were able to get the speakership of the California House because of a deal that was made. But these are not deal-making times that we're in. So I doubt if Jeffries thought that he was going to pull off something like that. I don't think he did. I just don't.
No coalition building like you see in Europe with the parliaments there, where odd companies get together.
Since you mentioned that, what do we have now? Because now we don't have just two parties. We've got two parties and the MAGA folks that could be anywhere.
Okay. The Ohio redistricting saga is entering a new phase. The new, reluctantly bipartisan maps are in place and will remain so through the 2030 election unless voters intervene. That process to put a redistricting reform amendment on next year's ballot took a step forward this week. The Attorney General's office approved the petition language. Now it goes to the ballot board. If it deems the question only contains one issue, supporters can begin collecting signatures of registered voters they need to gather some 414,000 valid signatures to qualify for November's ballot. Joe Mas, is this ballot board decision perfunctory? Is there any way they see this as two issues and violating the
I can't think, I really can't think how. And the thing to remember is that this is nothing new. This is not the first state that has considered something like this, and it's chugged right along. So I don't anticipate that that's going to throw a wrench in the works. And it's, at the end of the day, it's really kind of a popular notion on maybe both sides.
Seems like once they got the petition language settled with the attorney, third try, Dave Yost approved it. But now they've hired a campaign manager, apparently a man from Missouri who's won before there. He's also lost there, but he's won there before.
Right. I think that they're ready to launch. They were trying to get through that process. And, I think that the campaign believed there were some very fair and legitimate concerns that Yost had and some that maybe were a little bit questionable, but they got it all settled. And, I don't know that they come up with two issues, but the ballot board has been delivering a lot of surprises this year in terms of just, as Joe says, it's generally sort of a sleepy, chug along, do what it's supposed to do board. And, they're pushing some envelopes this year.
Yep. Bob, do you see it as two issues? Could they separate maybe state legislative races and congressional races?
I mean, you could break it up and say, well, one's a federal issue and the other one's a state issue. That's the only way I see where they can split them. I don't think it's going to make a difference overall. Just like when they, change the language on a ballot issue. I mean, who actually goes in and reads the ballot language? So, I mean, we sometimes fight over these things that I think in the end really doesn't make a difference.
But the bipartisan compromise on the maps,
Yes.
that must help the folks who don't want to change.
Yes, because it shows that the system did work that we currently have. Now, and Joe mentioned it, this has happened before. 40 years ago, Republicans joined with League of Women Voters to put a similar, not the same, but a similar commission-style things. And the Democrats at that time were in complete control of state government here in Ohio, and they fought it hard, spent a lot of money. And their whole argument was, why are you turning this over to individuals that are not responsive to the voters? The voters can't pick these people. And you know what? They beat it. It didn't happen. And I think that's pretty much going to be the argument that's going to be from the Republican side. It's going to be next year, which is we have a system. It worked. We have bipartisan maps. And why are you putting people in there that are not, going to listen to voters because the voters have no ability to pick them.
Joe, by the two Democrats voting for these maps, do they give credence to that? Did it work?
I tend to agree with Bob once again. I'm not sure that it would have gone down that route. And I heard the argument presented by the Democrats. I think they basically just said, let's just put that aside and let's go forward since there is a measure that is going to be on the ballot.
But that's what I didn't understand because...
Yeah, I would have, another thing that I'm not happy with my
it wasn't
Democrats.
the time to do it because you got a ballot issue coming up next year.
Litigate it again, and you've got the ballot issue.
Keep the dispute in the eyes of the public while the redistricting ballot issue is gathering signatures. That would seem to be the way to go if you were trying to draw attention to
you would say,
the flaws
hey, you
of the
got 4
system.
years that we're going to have to do this again in like 4 years, which would then do an urgency of trying to do something different. I don't get it.
Jen Miller from the League of Women Voters calls the latest maps an incumbent protection plan. Is that what happened here, Julie? Or any word that Democrats said, look, if you leave my few districts alone, we'll support these maps?
I think, yes, they're worried that under the current maps, it only gets worse for the Democrats each time that they come back to the table because the Republicans can change the maps. They can look at new demographics and change them in different ways, and they control the levers there. And so the idea is, well, let's freeze this in place. It's about as bad as it can get, and I don't know whether it is 4 or if it's 6 years because the previous one was 4 and it's a 10-year period. But at any rate, it will, be something that they can at least stick with.
Yeah, the census would be in 2030, and then they would do the maps after that, so it'd be 2032 before the new maps.
Under the current system, if you can't get Democrat buy-in on maps, they only last 4 years.
Yeah.
So you would have to have gone back in then in what, 28?
Well, technically, this was a continuation from. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, in Missouri, they put in an independent commission, and 2 years later they took it out. Imagine if that happened here. Anyway, Ohio voters begin Wednesday to decide if the state should enshrine abortion rights in the Constitution. Supporters of Issue 1 have put out another ad. Opponents, as of Friday, had yet to mount a substantial TV ad campaign. But there are signs, literal signs, of grassroots activism in rural areas. Lots of vote no on one lawn signs are popping up, and churches are actively urging their members to vote no. Bob Clegg, you work in this business, strategizing on TV ads. Can grassroots and church organization trump the ads that people are going to see?
I would say in a normal issue campaign, no, it wouldn't. Because in a normal issue campaign, the big job is educating voters about that issue. And you do that through TV. I mean, that's the most effective way. However, with this issue, it's abortion. And you know what? Everybody knows where they are at on that issue. So I think with this issue, I think grassroots, that kind of thing might be a lot more impactful than a normal issue campaign would be.
Joe, would Republican voters tend to be more reliable turning out, especially in odd year elections? Democrats less so?
Always. And I have repeated that over the years on my appearances here in the show. This is a different topic, by the way. This is locked in at 61-39 kind of thing. And people, I think, are already educated because they just had the no campaign, and now we've got the yes campaign. And not all the churches are against the more accessible abortion measures. Some of them are supporting it. Tim Ahrens, for example.
That's the latest ad that is out. I'm not sure if it's running on TV yet, but it's online. The yes on one side is using a minister, a pastor here in Columbus, and the ad begins with a Bible reading, Julie. So they are using faith in a way to say, faith says this should be a private decision. That's what the pastor says. This should be a private decision between women and their doctors, families and their doctors.
Right. I think they're emphasizing a very consistent message across this, which is, private decision between your doctor, your family, your faith leader, and not the government. I think that that's kind of where they're going with that. And I had done a piece over last weekend that on the other side, there are a lot of different ideas. You know, is this about protecting parents? Is this about protecting children? Is this about gender transitioning surgery? And it's gone kind of a little bit scattershot in terms of everything that the voters on that side are hearing.
Bob, who's the target audience of an ad, you know, with a pastor reading from the Bible on the yes on one
Well,
side?
I think it's obvious they're targeting conservative voters, religious evangelical voters. However, you know, I don't think it's going to work. Once again, going back to the issue itself, abortion. Everybody pretty much knows where they're at. And if you're an evangelical voter, you're going to know that, yeah, you don't like it. Abortion's the one issue that turns both sides hypocritical. The pro-abortion side is the liberal and Democrats who always want government intervention on everything, like COVID and mask mandates and vaccine mandates. And the pro-lifers and the Republicans are the ones that never want government intervention in. But on this one issue,
It flips.
they flip, and it's. I think the pro-abortion side was successful in the August special by kind of going down that taking away your majority vote, you know, because people really weren't understanding it that much. They're trying to do it again on this issue, and I don't think it's going to work.
I think liberals want government intervention. I agree with you. I think they don't want governmental control, and that's what the bans on abortion turn out to be.
Joe, who do you think this ad is? Is it targeted to, say, a Catholic person whose church is very much opposed to abortion? They're undecided, and this faith leader is saying this is a faith private decision.
Well,
give them license.
There may be some. And when you first mentioned Catholic, I thought you were talking about politically committed Catholic voters.
Wavering Catholic
But no.
abortion issue.
The wavering ones are not wavering. The wavering ones are going to vote yes. However, Tim Ahrens, the UCC pastor that appeared on that video, he's trying to remind the mainstream Protestant churches that abortion has never been an issue for them. This was shoehorned there back in the 1970s.
I mean, in a sense, what he's echoing is sort of the pro-choice, if you will, the message of the pro-abortion rights, which is that leave it to individuals to make their own decision. But I agree with Bob that, you know, this is not typical on that side of the political spectrum, that it's all about rah, get government out of our lives. I think that it's just clever messaging right now, because they know that there are a lot of Republicans and independents in this state that will resonate with.
All right. Topic 4, who is in charge of Ohio's education department is in question. In this year's budget, lawmakers stripped the State Board of Education of its policymaking powers. The Republican effort put those hands in the governor, and Governor DeWine fully supports it. But last month, some members of that board sued, claiming the law is unconstitutional, and a judge has put the law on hold. But then Governor DeWine held a testy news conference in which he said the state education department is dead. But he added, the board and the superintendent are still in charge of policy until the judge rules. Julie Carr-Smythe, what has he done to the education department?
You give me this question.
Yes, it seems like all he's done is change the name. Am I wrong?
He hasn't. Yeah, I mean, he basically I guess you could say under the hood, Ohio's education system is still chugging along. Yes. But on the surface, the fight is over who going forward will get to control really the steering wheel. And he is saying, I have to go forward with this. The law says I have to go forward with this. The court has very clearly said, no, I say you cannot implement this law. You cannot carry out the law as written. And the governor has just said the opposite and said, you know, I have to go forward because otherwise I have teachers who aren't getting paid and programs that aren't getting funded. And it just, we can't operate that way.
Joe, is this But I think the superintendent's still in charge, and the board still has technically the policy-making authority
Yeah.
while this case works its way through the court.
Well, I tell you, this reminded me, tongue planted firmly in cheek, this reminded me of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, where the legislature, remember that they named a president instead of Nicolas Maduro. So Nicolas Maduro named a new legislature to run the country at the same time that the other legislature attempts to run it. So that's the first thing that came to mind. I'm still stuck on that.
I mean, it's largely symbolic, but you know, lawmakers ignored the Supreme Court during the redistricting fight. It seems like the governor, not in reality, but in sort of in words, is ignoring this judge's ruling.
Well, the governor he's committed to improving education here in Ohio. He feels that, you know, we need to have a functioning department to get out grants, to approve vouchers, to pay teachers, whatever. The complaint that the board members have that brought this lawsuit is that it's unconstitutional. Well, it's not, because the Constitution says the legislature decides the powers of the board. So in the end, our Supreme Court is going to make a decision, and they're going to say, the legislature can do this.
Again, further proof that the Constitution writers need an editor. The Constitution says there shall be a state board of education and superintendent, and the powers shall be prescribed by law.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it's pretty clear cut.
well, it depends on who prescribes the law.
I think I can argue the case for the opponent. So that's.
I think our Supreme Court's going to say the legislature.
But the history
You're a
of this,
Supreme Court.
The
I
history,
like my Supreme Court.
the history of this, Julie, is that this was put in place back in the 50s, I believe, and the voters didn't like corruption in the education department, and that's why they did this.
For the very reason that they wanted the governor to have less control and the citizens to have more control. So, you know, the argument is sort of by stripping the board of anything but sort of the most cursory jobs, things like, you know, awarding the Teacher of the Year or something like that. You really are creating that board. It'll still sit there, but what will it really do?
That actually goes back to the intent of the voter, but you have to go back to the 1940s or 50s, whenever this was put in place. Local boards of election are hardly apolitical. There are lots of politics that happen at school board meetings, but officially they are nonpartisan. Candidates are not listed as Democrats or Republicans. Lately, conservative activists have been pushing hard for school board seats, and now there's a bill at the State House that would require school board candidates to declare their party affiliations. Joe Mas, typically apolitical, nonpartisan, but is this a good idea?
It's an excellent idea, actually. I think that not only in the school boards, but I think city council, I think the judicial races, I think they all ought to have a party affiliation associated with it. Taking that off doesn't make it any less partisan, but at least you've got an idea generally what these individuals believe vis-a-vis the platform of the parties and direction that they're going politically.
The House
Why
Supreme
not?
Court did this, Bob, last election.
Yes.
We know what DNR, which judge was. And
Yes.
You think this should happen on school boards?
Yes, and I think we should do it with school board races, because those are races that not everybody, but a lot of people overlook because they don't think they know the individuals. They don't know exactly what the school board members do. So you get a lot of drop off. People don't even go down the ballot to vote for those races. I think if you put in a party ID, I think people will get just enough information, like Joe said, that they can vote whether it's Democrat or Republican. So yeah, I think it'll encourage more people to vote in those races.
I guess I have to play the devil's advocate, but I feel like it's sort of, at least for now, it's sort of the end of, you know, just good government regardless of party, where certain jobs didn't require you to abide by some political platform. You just go in there, you do the job, you make your best decisions. You know, that's probably, you know, an idealist or rosy idea of any government job, but I just feel like these were supposed to be situations where, hey, it's just community members, we're just getting together. Like when I ran a Girl Scout troop and I didn't know the party affiliation of my other families, it just didn't really matter. We're just a community here.
Could it be just a phase of a hyperpartisanship now, Joe, that eventually we could get back to more of a bipartisan, and the party labels, then they're stuck on there, and then we're still, does it not continue the cycle we're on now if you put party labels on school board ballots?
I don't think so, because at that point, the label itself won't matter as much. If we can eliminate the hyper-partisanship, which is the only reason that I suggest perhaps we should put the R and the D, or I, behind the name, I think that'll go away organically. Not the identification, but the meaning behind it.
Hyperpartisanship increase or decrease if you put DNR next to a school board member?
Oh, I don't know if it increases it. What's interesting about all this is the attention that school board races have been getting over the last, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they never got that much attention. And by the sheer, attention they're getting, that's what's, forcing these kind of, party ID things.
All right, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. Joe Mas, you're up first.
I'm going to try to suppress my rage against my fellow Democrats and celebrate. This week we have to celebrate the awarding of the Nobel Prize in physics to OSU Professor Emeritus Pierre Agustin. His work, what does his work do? It allows devices to optimize speed of electronic operations, so even faster phones and things.
Okay, Bob.
The rumor that's been out there for a while is starting to gain steam, which is that Vivek Ramaswamy may not actually be running for president. He may be running for the U.S. Senate seat here in Ohio.
Interesting. And Julie?
Very interesting. I'm just going to say I'm eagerly watching Wednesday's start of early voting. What I'm hearing and understanding from the boards I'm talking to is that early absentee applications are way up. And that there's a lot of interest, so we'll find out.
We'll see. My off-the-record comment, just like Chuck Schumer tried to relax the Senate dress code to accommodate John Fetterman's hoodies, I predict that if Jim Jordan is chosen Speaker, he will relax the House dress code and make suit coats optional. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. Continue the conversation on Facebook. And you can watch us anytime on your time at our website, wosu.org/COTR, or you can check us out on the PBS video app. Download it today. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.